Happy Thursday. It is Charla K coming live to you with another Forever Friends Academy episode. How are you guys doing? Hope you are doing well and having a lovely night. Mrs. Ivory, my beautiful cousin, how are you, beautiful? Thank you for popping in. You are at a tippity top. And Ali Socks, thank you. You were on with me on TikTok. I appreciate you guys. I just came in. So let me introduce myself just in case there's someone new on the podcast tonight. My name is Charlotte Cornegay. I am an author, recording artist, creator of Interest Coaching and Forever Friends Academy, where I do group relationship coaching. This is my show titled the same, Forever Friends Academy, where we talk about all relationship topics. And my main goal is just to help you love to your fullest capacity and to develop relationships that last a lifetime. Because the relationships that we keep are the heartbeat of our existence. And you know what? It's such an integral part of life. However, we don't really get taught about it, right? Develop the skills to really be successful. And there's so many people who have a bad outlook on relationships. And so I wanted to create a space where we can talk about it, present some principles that you can use to navigate your relationships in the best way. So let's dive into tonight's topic, which is how to have inviting conversations in relationships. How to have inviting conversations in relationships. And I'm going to start, of course, by asking you guys a question, like I always do. The question, how I want you to think about this question tonight is, one, let me know if you can either think of things that people have said to you in regards to how they experience, how you communicate to them. So one, how do you think or have heard or feel that people, in what way do they experience you when you communicate? And would you say that you feel like you have an inviting way that encourages someone to communicate with you? And if so, what do you think that are particular things that you do that create that environment? And if not, that's okay. You can be honest too. Say, no, that's why I'm here. I don't, I don't have an inviting way. And, I'd like to learn a bit more. And secondly, if you want to answer it in another way, that's maybe not so exposing. You can tell me if, I guess, you can let me know how can someone who wants to communicate with you, what are some things that they could do to set an inviting environment that encourages you to want to communicate with them? Ozzy, how are you? Thank you for popping in. We are talking about how to have inviting conversations in relationships. And why is this important? Because on my last live, I was talking about learning the difference between cultures, systems, and seasons in relationships. And I stated that, the culture of the relationship should create systems that help you navigate all the seasons, right? That your relationships, especially if you're in a marriage, will most definitely go through. And I thought about, definitely a system that is necessary for us to have is a system of having healthy dialogue to communicate as we're going through, right? The many different varying twists and turns of life and challenges and obstacles as they come, right? So I wanted to put out some tips, some advice on how we can, right, have healthy communicative systems in our relationship. Hey, Dallas, how are you? We are talking about how to have inviting conversations. So again, I'll put out the question to kind of facilitate the conversation there are many tips. So I'm not even going to do all of that tonight, but I will present four that I definitely think are very valuable in creating inviting environments so that you can communicate with each other effectively. So again, the question, let me know based on either what people have told you or how you feel, right? People experience you when you communicate with them. Or you can answer it in this way. How can someone create an inviting environment that would encourage you and make you feel safe, open, and transparent to communicate with them? So feel free to answer the question in any way you so please. And definitely I'm going to show you the code. I'm also going to put, because y'all can call me live, okay? Listen, I love talking to people screen to screen. If you are camera appropriate, because you got to be on camera to call me, but you can join the show live, all right? So if you don't feel like typing, which I totally understand, because listen, it's nighttime, okay? So you might not feel like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link of how you can join. I'm also going to put the QR code on the screen, just in case you want to scan it. I'm going to give you multiple ways, okay, to connect with me. All right. So you can come on live and we can talk it out, okay? I would absolutely, definitely love that. So I put the link. It actually is already there. If you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, it's actually in the description in the post. You can just literally click on that. It'll let you come on the show live. But I also, to double down on that, put the link in, all of the platforms that I am on right now. So definitely, and let me put it up on the screen just in case you want to scan the QR code, and then I will get into letting you guys know some of my tips that I'm going to talk about tonight. So feel free. I would love for y'all to come on with me. All right. So before I get into my tips, I'm going to expose myself, okay? Try to be vulnerable always to you guys. So I thought about the question that I asked you guys. How do people experience the way that I communicate with them? And you know what? Honestly, when I was thinking about it, ooh, because I thought about all the things that I've heard people say. And now I will layer this that I think because I do the coaching and I'm also naturally a very curious and inquisitive type of person. So I love asking questions. I love asking open-ended questions. It's like literally my nature. But boy, I don't, I'm just thinking about the things that they've said and I'm like, I don't know if that's inviting, right? All right. But anyway, I'll expose myself, right? So what people have told me, oh, geez. In how they've experienced communicating with me is that honestly, they've said it's almost like, oh God, this is going to sound so bad. But anyway, they have said like, it feels like sometimes that when I've talked to them is that you don't know, like, okay, I'm going to just say it outright, right? Like almost like if somebody gave you a dagger, but it's like one of those silent ones. It's like, it's not, you don't know what's happening to you when it's happening to you, right? And it's like when you walk away, or we stop the conversation, they don't realize that they're bleeding, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. It sounds so bad. Ay, ay, ay. Y'all got to tell me. Y'all come on my show. Like, if it feels like that, right? So I've heard that in coaching, right? When I'm actually in my professional element, but then I've also heard it, geez, in just casual conversations, right? But I will say this, right? Even though they say that they say that they feel like it was necessary, right? Or like I just like did a deep clean or deep dive into their soul, or their psyche or their heart and made them aware of certain things that they weren't even aware of. And I will say, because I say it like oftentimes, like I don't know. Okay, well, coaching, yes, because you've paid me to do that, right? So yes, I do know what direction I want to go to and go in, and of course, the questions that I'm presenting to you are intentional, right? To kind of help aid and guide in the process. But if I'm having a casual conversation, oftentimes I don't know that I'm doing that, and it's not my, like, I'm not intentionally trying to do it. It just, I guess, because of my nature and the questions that I ask, it just automatically does that to the person. And they will say it's not like you are, intrusively doing that. It's just, that's what the conversation, how it evolves and what happens. So when I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, geez, it doesn't, it doesn't feel very inviting, but it must be because, people still talk to me. They do say, I think as well that I do listen, you know? And that's probably why, right? Like I listen, and then what I'm listening to, then I'll take all of that and then, put it back into a question that I guess then peers into their soul even more. So I get it. I guess I got to go back to those people. But if I could sum it up in one word, I would say what I've heard is healing. I think, and I get it because sometimes the process of healing is not always, it is an invitation, but I don't think the process when you're going through it always feels good or feels, you know what I mean? Like it's inviting, like somebody invited me to feel like, you're getting attacked, but you're not really. You're just being stripped of certain things that might have been intertwined with your identity, but it really wasn't really who you truly were. So as you truly are, so as you're trying to shed all of that, yeah, I could feel, I guess a dying to self. So I get it, but I was just thinking, I'm presenting this to you guys tonight. I was like, oh, I don't know if that sounds too inviting. But as far as like my body language, I'm working on that too. And, it wasn't until my husband brought it to my attention. He made me realize, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard it for the ones who come, on the live with me often, is that I tend to chuckle. I tend to do like this little laugh in the most inopportune moments, I think, like meaning I could say something that was like really heavy and I literally just chuckle, and it's like I want to call it I want to say a bad behaviorism, but I don't think it's optimal, especially if I'm coaching, because it's so habitual that I can't necessarily. I'm learning now. I think I'm doing better, but I still hear it in a lot of my recordings because I've done it so long. And when my husband brought it to my attention, he did a deep dive. He didn't mean to. He just kind of pointed it out because that's what relationships, having intimate relationships does, or a part of the process, right, where they see blind spots and things and habits that you might have not even noticed. And when he told me that, I was like, oh man, I've done that literally my entire childhood. And I think I told him, this is what I'm telling him, I think it started because I would experience, like, whether it was dysfunctional things or things that brought about a negative emotion inside of me. And when I was little, I would just try to use laughter to kind of escape a little bit from the pain and things like that. So I think it translated into when I'm either on here live or I'm in my coaching sessions, that I chuckle when I'm saying like certain things that I know it might be a little, hard to digest. I guess it's like, put a little bit of sugar in with the medicine, you know, a spoonful of it, and then it'll make it go right down smooth, That's Mary Poppins. But I guess that's my version in my brain. That's what I'm thinking it's doing, but I'm learning. Yeah, no, that's not. That's only doing that for you, Charlotte. That's not doing it for the people who are actually listening to you. So those are some of the things that I have heard, and I will be honest. I think it definitely is very truthful and factual. I've definitely heard plenty of people come back to me and say, thank you for saying the things that you chose to say. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being truthful. Thank you for saying the things that are hard to say, even when I couldn't see it. Because when I reflect on it now, or as I'm going through this process, literally I've heard clients say, I hear your voice in my, in my brain, in my head. I hear a little angel Charlotte there saying, well, I call myself the angel. I don't know if in that moment there, thinking I'm the angel. But nonetheless, they say they hear my voice, and it's in a good way. It reminds them of certain things that they want to stay connected to and be able to utilize as they navigate their own processes in life. So that's what I would say, And I think lastly, and I'll take a moment after that to see if I have any answers, I would love to get some feedback from you guys. Because I think in another way, if I had another word, would, and this is going to seem like contradictory, but I think lighthearted. And let me explain, because I just said healing, right? And recovering, and, how the process is not always smooth and full of happiness. But I would say lighthearted because I think just in my outlook in life, have said this on other podcasts that I just look at the challenges of life. There's not a lot of things that really, really like disturb or I feel are very pressing. I kind of take life as it goes. And so even in the most hard times and rough things, I'll just take it as a very lighthearted, so when people come and talk to me about their challenges, at the same time, while I'll give them the truth and I'll, add some healing balm there when I'm communicating with them, I think it also gives them a lightness of heart, as I've been told, because, right, there's no problem that is so astronomical that, right, either God can't handle or my faith in you in being able to process through and get to whatever the other end is, coming out greater than before. They also have said that about me. So I can see how it goes hand in hand. Now that I'm talking it out and expose myself to you guys, I can see how they go hand in hand. So, hey, beautiful treasure, congratulations. Congratulations. I'm really late. I think I wrote it on your post, I think. If I didn't, I'm sorry. I definitely thought it. So congratulations. She just graduated from college, so I appreciate you. We are talking about how to have inviting conversations in relationships. And the question that I put out to everyone is, how do you think people feel, or how do people experience you when they're communicating with you? Would you say you are someone who has and creates an inviting environment when you're communicating with someone? Or maybe you're like open and honest, say, no, I don't have one. And maybe this is how I feel and this is why I feel. It's not, if you want to answer it that way, you don't. Maybe a less exposing answer would be, if you're communicating with someone, what are some of the things that they do or that you pay attention to that you feel like create an inviting environment for you to feel safe, comfortable, open, honest, and transparent to, be able to feel all of those things and communicate with them. So you can answer if you want to. And I put a link if you want to come screen to screen and you don't want to type, you can. You could just click that link and it'll make you come on the show. So you came in on me describing what I've heard, how people have said their experience of communicating with me is. So I'm going to tell you as far as on the second part of the question, some things that people can do to create an inviting environment. And why does this matter? Again, as we were talking about cultures, systems, and seasons in relationship and learning the difference between the two, right? The culture is made up of the character of the two people in the relationship. And that type of character and nature that they have is going to create behaviorisms, right? And behaviorisms create systems in relationships. And the systems should, right, help you navigate the various is it manifold? I don't know if I think it's a word. But the many seasons that you will navigate in your relationship, especially if you are going towards marriage, you're already married, definitely many different seasons that a relationship is going to go through. So the systems are necessary. So I wanted to present how to have healthy communication in a relationship, a healthy system of communication in relationships. So definitely, if you are typing, if you're taking your time to kind of marinate and reflect on it, and you type, etc., I will take a moment to stop and read your answer for sure. But I'm going to put out, there are many, but we are only going to go over 4 tonight because I'm not going to have you on here forever, ever, right? So number 1 that I always tell my clients, and I think it's such a great game changer. It has been a game changer for me. Definitely, I have seen how it's a game changer for the clients that I coach, is how to create a healthy environment and an inviting environment so that your partner will want to communicate with you is, I think, really essential, is understand that communication is happening all the time. We are so focused in culture and society and to focus on verbalizing, vocal communication, but there are so many different modes of communication. And if you want to have a healthy system of communication, you want to have access all of them and utilize all of them to display or convey the message that you want to get to your partner. So that's the first thing I tell my clients. And so for a simple example would be that I give often, an assignment that I give to my clients, especially if they feel like they're in a communication rut, or stagnant in that area, or if there's an issue that they just are having a hard time being able to communicate about, I will give them this assignment where I'll say, okay, let's write down the different modalities, right? Different modes of communication. So of course, right, speaking, verbalizing it. There is writing letters. I know, right? Old school. We don't do that no more. To think once upon a time, if somebody wanted to communicate, they just have to write a letter, mail it out. Forget about mailing it out. Sometimes you have to write it out and somebody ride on a horse, you know, or a buggy. I'm going way back, right? But literally, right, that's how we used to communicate. So writing a letter, of course, now we have text, right? That's a way that you can communicate. So let's just use those three, right? But you can write nonverbal communication, right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more too. So let's say I give them those four and I'll ask them, I say, okay, this particular message that you want to convey to your partner, what has been the one that you are using the most that's causing you to have the block? And, most of the times it is the verbal, because we lean towards that. Mostly because one, it's the easiest one to do. It's like, I feel something, so I just want to express it. Let me express it, It takes, honestly, less thought, right, in it, and intentionality, because if you feel something, you just want to express it, you can. And so and then I'll look and I'll ask them and I'll say, okay, which one is the least? Which one have you done the least? And let's just say, maybe the person said, oh, writing. You know what, I don't really write. Or maybe they say, I used to text her or him all the time, and now we kind of don't. So I'll say, okay, we're going to take this week, and your assignment is to either write, could be a journal, write something simple. It could be as simple as writing a sticky note, have a good day this morning. Oh, I'm praying you have a good day. Or, I can't wait to come back home to you, or whatever it is, right? And leave it someplace around the house, on the fridge, on the pillow, etc. Or if it's texting, text maybe during the day, maybe at lunch or something like that. And you would be surprised. I have had couples come back to me in the week and say that they either utilize that way of communication to be able to expose and become very open and transparent to each other. And it helped because they were using other modes of communication to do it, So that's number one. And definitely if you are a woman on here, okay, especially if you're a married woman, because sky's the limit if you're married, okay? But I will tell them, do not sleep on body language and appearance, especially when it comes to men. I tell my wives, even if they're not wives, but they're in a relationship, you can also do this, but definitely, okay, the secret sauce. If you're a wife, I'll say you should know your husband's favorite color or colors. You want to say a message to him, put that favorite color on a nice little outfit. He won't even, like, you won't know. He'll be like, favorite color on his favorite person, delivering, right, a certain message to him. And even if the messages might not be his favorite message, right, it does something, right, to the person, because it's like, I'll give an example as a singer, if you've heard anybody make songs and they've used like other songs from the past, and you kind of automatically like it because your brain is already used to hearing that song, even if it's two different lyrics and in a slightly different way. we're already used to it. And so that's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, I already like this color. And even if I don't necessarily like what's coming out her mouth, it's on this beautiful individual. So it's like, it's like, wait, I don't want to hear it, but I'm hearing it. So definitely something. It's a powerful tool that many of us don't use because women, when we want to express ourselves, we just want to express it. We want to talk, okay? But let me tell you, if you mix what you want to say with how thoughtfulness within your appearance, it will already set a very inviting environment to have that conversation, right? So I'm going to take some time because beautiful treasure took some time out to write to me, which I so appreciate. She said, I don't think I am a great communicator at all, but I do think I can improve a lot on that. I do try to make people not feel alone by sharing my own experiences. Yeah, that's definitely one way that you can do that. And she says, I do think when I write, I am better at conveying ideas simply because I get the opportunity to think about how I feel before I convey it. Really great answers. Thank you so much, Treasure, for responding. And I agree completely with your answer. I tell people all the time, which is going to seem very like contradictory and hypocritical and all kind of things is I tell them and my husband, if he was here, he would be my witness. When we're at home, I love listening. I'm curious. I love to understand things. So my sweet spot is being in the cut, observing and listening. I don't necessarily, I think I'm also like Treasure. I like to communicate better in writing for those same reasons that I can kind of reflect on what I'm saying, be solid. It's like a marriage to me when I write. And that might be because I'm a songwriter and I also am an author. So I've written books. So I'm thinking like, listen, what you write on that dotted line. You know what I mean? It's solid in my brain, like the 10 Commandments or something, like, am I really gonna write this and put this out for people to see throughout time? So I look at it like that. And so it's like a marriage to me. It's like a commitment. And I think you do think about more thoroughly what you really want to say when you do that. So I agree with you, and I tell people all the time because they're like, "Well, you have a show and you're you're a coach and you're on here coming on live," and I tell them I only do that because I believe God has purposed me to do it, and I don't want to die doing what I knew I was supposed to do. Just because I don't feel like my personality, quote unquote, is fit for it because clearly God has gifted me with the articulation to be able to do it. So that's why I'm doing it, But I always tell my family and friends, that I'm like this because it has to be like a scheduled thing. Like I come on here, it's scheduled 8:30 Thursday, Sunday. It has to be a specific topic that I feel like I'm getting inspiration to talk about, but I'm not like just a talker. It has to be very in a certain way. So I totally get you. I absolutely, I'm here with you on that one. So that's number one is to have inviting conversations. Think of other modes of communication. Think of, what you have been doing. And if you feel like it hasn't worked, don't just get stuck there. I tell wives, husbands all the time, if you feel like you guys are like at odds with just verbalizing with each other, we have to now like access and dive into the other modes of communication because they're powerful, and your approach and what you're trying to communicate is very important, right? So in switching and kind of like your mindset and thinking about that, then it presents more thoughtfulness, and when you're trying to convey the message that you're conveying. So definitely think of other modes of communication and see which ones that you can kind of incorporate to try to convey your message. All right, number two. Number two, which I think is really important, and you'll see immediately some changes, at least as far as the feedback I have received and definitely experience wise, is number two is affirming small vulnerabilities. Okay, so affirming and appreciating small vulnerabilities. What does that mean, Charlotte? It means that, let's say, you've been having a hard time communicating with your partner, and they make an inch step forward towards you to say something to you. Then whatever little bit they give you, you say, "Oh man, I really appreciate you coming to take out the time to say this to me. I really appreciate it because I want us to have open communication. I want you to feel, safe and comfortable to communicate with me." Right. And then that will set a tone where, okay, now it's inviting to where we can dive in a little bit, right? Step by step, deeper to kind of figure out how we can resolve, resolve whatever issue or conflict that we are in. Right. Because a lot of times, especially if there has been offense made, right, you will have the apology that they should say to you in a particular way, that they should say it, what you want to hear, and our ears are tuned to that so much that when our partner does come and offers us, some kind of like wave, I'm thinking of what's her name? Tony Braxton, Tamar Braxton's sister, and that song "Love and War" that she created, which I absolutely love. That's one of my favorite songs to sing. But I'm thinking about the lyric where she says, "I'm waving my red flag," right? Like, I want this war to be over. Like, let's make this war over. And so sometimes your partner is taking, albeit it might be a micro step, it might be a small step, but it is a step towards peace and or wanting to present and create an opportunity where you guys can communicate in a healthier way and in a better way. So if you see them taking that inch, pour some fuel on that, like some some appreciation, some praise for them taking that step in your response as an action of you responding, also, giving an inch so that hopefully you can create a more inviting environment to discuss some of the more, I don't want to say real issues, but things that have been pressing to you in the relationship. So, all right. So we got one, use all the modes of communication and always remember the truthful principle that communication is happening all the time. So it's not just happening when you open your mouth and speak. I always like to say your whole life is a prayer unto God. Some people think of prayer and they think of, okay, I'm clasping my hands and I'll be in church, or maybe I'm in my own private home, privacy of my home. But no, every action that you make is a prayer unto God, like your whole life, right? So in that same way, I want you to understand that communication is always happening too. We know that to be true because you can think of a relationship where there has been an offense that has occurred and then, right, complete silence. Even if you're not talking to the person, if you guys get on the phone, if you get in the same vicinity, you can feel the tension in the air without things being said. And what they're doing, all nonverbal cues, right? All nonverbal communication of what their disposition is. So we know how to play the game, and we know how to do that when we are offended, and whether we think that we are, doing it in that way to let that person know, like, listen, you know, you hurt me. We can do that same thing in a positive way and actually utilize all the different ways, adjust our disposition, adjust our body language, adjust our tone, adjust our appearance, all in a way to create a more inviting, you know, have a more inviting conversation, right? So those are that's number one. Number two, affirm small vulnerabilities. Whatever they give to you, say thank you for that. I appreciate it because I want you to speak to me. I love when you speak to me. I love the fact that we can have open communication. However, you want to receive that inch that they give you with grace and respond to it in that way. Number three, I think is the most overlooked, but so simple. And honestly, about 90% of communication is this. Listen, one of my verses that I think about in the Bible all the time is be slow to speak and quick to listen. Or and as I like to tell my children, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so you can be slow to speak, quick to listen. And I always tell my clients that, man, if you don't listen to each other, you rob yourself of one of the most beautiful experiences that we have in a relationship, which is to truly try to understand each other, which is truly experience each other over and over again. It's a process of self discovery, deeper self discovery of yourself, and deeper self discovery of that person, right? Like, there is no apex to life, and there are many different seasons that we go through. There are many different transitions in life. There are many twists and turns, curveballs, all kind of things. And I just reflect on my marriage. I've known my husband since I was a teenager. Met him at 13, started our forever friendship at 17. And I will tell you, in seeing him go through from teenagehood to adulthood to being a husband to being a father to becoming an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, I've had the beauty. I've had the beautiful experience and delightful experience to experience him over and over again. And there could be no way that I could say, I know you fully, or I sum you up. Like, I just know everything what you're going to do. Now, mind you, anyone who has been around us and knows us, right, they can kind of, we could be in the room and they were like, that's either your sister or your wife. Because, right, just the way you guys are, your speech is alike. So I'm not saying that to say that there isn't a depth, right, of how much I know about my husband, but I'm saying that as expansive as love is, right, in that same way, when we are putting God at the center of our relationship, because God is love, right? Putting God at the center of our relationship, the beauty is me knowing that as much as I try to understand my husband, God made a deficit in the man and a deficit in the woman so that when we come together, there's a certain wholeness that occurs. And the empathy that is consistently needed in a relationship is, for me, comes from the space of me understanding as his wife, I will never know full throttle what are the things that, right, the pressures that come on him as a man, or how that feels and how he processes it through, because I'm not a man, right? And him, same thing, him towards me, right? And that's the beauty of it, is like, I still want to try to get to know as much as I can know about you, even though I know as much as I try, I'm still not going to get all in its full totality. And that's the beauty of it, because us together is the full, right? It's the full picture. And so it affords for me to always lead with empathy in knowing that, So in that, the more that we exercise listening, and truly wanting to listen, to understand that individual detached from the apology you want to hear, from how you want them to show up, but you just really just want to understand their processing, what they're going through, etc. Right? That's the beauty of it. So if you don't listen and you just want to hear what you want to hear and you just want your feelings alone to be validated, then you rob yourself of that beautiful opportunity of the whole, really, purpose, of us having a relationship and choosing to walk side by side in life with someone. So, yeah, underrated in so many ways, listening. Because the more that you can kind of listen, then, truly listen, then it will feed how you then respond to that person, because you're really, truly trying to see where the need is, where the concern is and things like that. I think, honestly, that's why I do the things that, I do in coaching, or why I feel like, God has called me to do it, because I've done a lot of listening, I delight in it, and I delight in observing things, and my curiosity wants to know, like the consistent truths of life and things like that. And man, you know, I would have been okay with like just being in my own like selfishness of me feeding myself, in discovering these truths and things like that. And God, like, what in the world? How you mean you just want to collect all these treasures, let it reflect and the fruits remain in your life and not give it out to other people? Like, no, Charlotte, you no. This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna create interact coaching. You're gonna create forever friends. You're gonna invite people in your home and create an inviting environment to conversate about it. And right then it just unfolds into something that I would have never thought. But that's the key, And I think going back to what I was telling you guys about how people have said they've experienced communicating with me as like healing, but it feels like you're being kind of like gut open first, and you don't know you're bleeding and you're bleeding. But after that, there is a healing. It's like a healing balm, right? And I think a large part of that is the listening piece. It's like, man, because I'm taking in what they're saying and I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to look at the micro details, and I'm looking at their micro expressions and trying to, look for all of those spaces where the communication is occurring, and then bringing it up because they're not seeing it. Sometimes you need the third party because they can't see it, because they're too kind of overwhelmed with their emotions and what they're in. So sometimes it's helpful, right? That's why therapy or coaching is helpful, because you have that third party there that can be unbiased and, see it from, a more expansive angle, all the different angles, right? So that's number 3. And number 4, which is the last one, but definitely not least, but I do think it's the most probably atypical one that you will hear from me tonight, and hence why I wanted to bring it up, is actually practice what you want to say to your partner before you say it. Oh, I am Sims. Oh my gosh, I scrolled down. I don't even know if you're in here anymore. But if you are, how are you, sir? Wow, haven't seen, heard from you in a long time. I appreciate you. Thank you for popping in. We are talking about how to have inviting conversations in relationships. And you know what, sir? I have a link up top. I don't know if you saw it. I already placed it in there if you want to actually come on the show and talk to me screen to screen. You can. I'm gonna put the link again just in case anybody else wants to jump on. So hey, thank you for popping in. All right, so we are on the last one, and I will restate it again. Just want to acknowledge the new person coming into the chat. Is practice what you want to say in the mirror before you say it. Now, I have a background. I graduated with communication studies degree, but I'm also a singer. And I also really loved the arts, really minored in theater arts once I decided not to major in it. And this particular practice is something that we do in all of those areas. In fact, I studied communication studies because I really just wanted to do the arts, because I love singing and acting and things like that. But people get a real degree, etc. So I was like, you know what? Let me do communication studies. I will still have to honing on the skills that are necessary for singing, such as articulation, pronunciation, all of those things, stage presence, right? I'll just transfer them over there. So this is something that when you're studying those industries or those areas of study, communication, singing, and acting, is to look at yourself in the mirror, say your lines if you're acting, say your lines if you're doing a speech, sing your song in front of the mirror if you're singing a song. Why? Because you want to know how the audience that you are entertaining or doing a speech or etc., how they're experiencing you. You want to see what they're seeing. So I'm like, you know what? Great for that. Definitely great for relationships, right? But here's the thing. I always say I help people, with their lazy loving, because maybe someone's listening to this and say, I don't want to do all that. Why do I have to do all that? Why do I have to, why do I have to practice what I want to say to the person in the mirror before? Can't I just talk to them? All right. If it is a scenario where you're having constant communication issues and you are finding that you're stuck and stagnant, don't you want to do all that you possibly could do to, right, kind of amend this situation to create healthy dialogue in the relationship? Why not? If I can do it for just communicating a speech to people, or just for lines, or you know what I mean, or for a song that I'm singing, why wouldn't I do that for this, right? Especially if you're married, right, or a long term committed relationship. Why wouldn't I do that if I knew that it had, the potential to create a healthy system of communication for me? That's what I would say to that person. If there's a person listening who says that in their mind, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to match the approach, right? It's going to tie in your intention of what you want to say to the person with your approach, right? So your intention is going to match your approach if you practice it before you say it. And this came to my mind because I just recently came across a little snippet of a podcast, and I forget the name of the podcast. It's a pretty popular one, but I'm remiss of the name right now. But basically, the gentleman on the podcast was saying that he feels so sad for the men, today's generation of young men, because they will never get to experience coming up to a woman, and being able to ask for her number, ask her for a date, because there's this conversation going on right now how men are saying they're no longer going up to women and things like that. They don't want to deal with the rejection, and I think there's a lot of the argument around us, social media and things like that. So people are very comfortable with kind of hiding behind their profile pictures and things like that. And so it's a totally different culture. And so he had said in it that he remembers, back in his teenage days, how he would actually practice how he was going to go and approach, the girl or the woman that he was going to, approach, and make sure that it was coming off, cool, and in the way that he wanted to present it to her. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. This is a great tool to use. And that's when it made me think of the fact that we do this all the time, right? In all of those different areas of study that I had background in. So I said, this is perfect for, people who are definitely having communication issues and problems in their relationship. They can use it. All right. So number one, again, it will allow you to match your intention, your approach with the intention that you have, right? To convey the message, to deliver the message. And I think too, it's the same as when I tell people to write it down first before you say it, right? Because it takes the smoke off, it takes the steam, it reduces the anger. Like, imagine trying to think about what you want to say and the intent that you have with it, but you're saying it and repeating it over and over again. So as you do that, you're literally hearing back what you're saying, and I've done this with I teach vocal performance, and I've done it with students in my vocal performance classes, and I'll just have them say different words, like I deserve love, I need love, and or I am love. And when they repeat it back to themselves, they literally can identify the feeling that comes along with the way that they're wording the statement, So versus someone saying I deserve love might bring on a longingness out of them, versus if they say I am love, it brings out this confidence, truthfulness in that statement. Oh wait, I don't have to long for this outside of me. It's already living within me, right? So when you're practicing what you want to say to your partner, you're going to find yourself, your inner being, almost like how they have autocorrect on the phone, especially if you are a person who is a believer, and you allow, your spirit will autocorrect it. If you allow it, it will autocorrect and possibly help you frame it in a way so that the message that you're delivering, again, will match the intention. And the more that you kind of practice it, if you were angry, if you were in a certain unstable state, it is a method that you can use to kind of stabilize yourself, and appropriate your emotions so that your partner isn't getting all of that. you know I always say to my clients, I hear what you want to say, but before you say what you want to say, understand that words are not just these hollow things. There is energy, there is spirit that is set is with that comes along with it, and oftentimes before the words land, the person feels the energy and the spirit before. So this is a way that you can kind of like appropriate those things. And yes, does it take extra effort? Absolutely. But listen, I always say to people, you want someone who you meet in your life that says, you know what, it's loving you is not hard, it's worth it work, right? Loving you is not hard, it's a privilege to be with you. So whatever it is, processes that I need to go through to improve upon, and find a deeper depths and better versions of myself, so that I can offer that to you, then it's worth it work. It's worth it work. So, yeah. Hey, Chef, how are you? Thank you for popping in. I'm pretty much winding down now and getting off, but what we did talk about tonight is how to have inviting conversations in relationships, because we know communication is definitely key. And we were talking about culture and systems and seasons in relationships. And I was telling them on my last episode that the culture of the relationship should create systems in your relationship that help you navigate the different seasons that your relationship will go through. So today I presented some tips on how to create an environment that is inviting, so that your partner, it will encourage your partner to want to communicate with you. And the question, feel free if you want to answer it, I ask is, what is some feedback that people have given to you of how they experience you when you communicate with them? Do you feel like you are a person who kind of has an inviting way that people want to communicate with you? Or if you want to answer it in the other way that I kind of articulate the question is, in what way, or what things did someone do to kind of create an inviting environment, to kind of encourage you and make you feel safe, make you feel comfortable, okay with being vulnerable, open, and transparent to communicate with them. So that's what we talked about tonight, and I'm going to review and summarize, and then I'm going to get off. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. So again, the 4 tips that I gave tonight is: 1, understand that communication is happening all the time. So even when you're not verbalizing it, communication is happening. So with that being understood, let's also use other modes of communication, meaning like if you're going through something and especially if you're in a relationship and you guys are butting heads all the time trying to verbalize it to each other, let's use different modes, right? Like write a letter or write sticky notes, something simple, to kind of use it as a way, an opportunity, as an invitation, to communicate in a more, inviting way and safe way, whether it could be texting. I talked about visual appearance. Some of the examples I gave to the women who were on, like, listen, thoughtfulness in your visual appearance, knowing your person's favorite color, wearing that favorite color while you're conveying the message. There's honestly like so many different ways that we can create an inviting environment to communicate to each other. So that was number 1. Number 2, affirming and appreciating small vulnerabilities. So listen, you might not have heard, or your partner might not have given you the word by word apology that you wanted, or what you want them to say, or communicate with you in the best way possible. But if they make an inch, affirm it. Say, wow, I'm so glad that you did that. Like maybe we can't have the full throttle conversation, but maybe your husband or wife, cooked you dinner, or gave you a drink, It's so many different ways, right? It's all nonverbal communication is happening all the time. Maybe they rubbed your back. If you notice it, and even if it's not the exact thing that you want, whatever small thing, acknowledge it and affirm it and say, wow, thank you. If they rubbed your back, say, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that back rub, because I really hate when there's like this silence, space or distance between us. So I'm so grateful for that. Instead, sometimes what happens is like, oh, you rub my back. We ain't talk about this yet. Like, don't rub my back and you ain't talk to me about, right. Confrontation. You know what I mean? Like, so affirm it, and hopefully, right, a little inch will create a more of an opportunity to kind of dive into to maybe some of the more in-depth conversations, right? So that's number 2. Number 3, listen. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Be slow to speak and quick to listen. Use them 2 ears that God gave us to know that 90% of the communication is listening. And definitely listen to genuinely understand, to try to understand what that person is going through, to try to understand how they're processing things. And it's a great, especially in relationships, it's great system to try to listen and understand without personalizing the person's condition, without personalizing their condition. Even if their condition hurts you, I know it's mature, I know, but listen, godly fundamental principles and truths will stretch you to get out of just the simple, or maybe the normative response or reaction, and call you to higher ways of dealing and handling each other, So maybe listen to that person in the way of cherishing them, and what you have with them. I just did a group session yesterday, actually, and I ended the session by playing this video that I had saw of this podcast, and they were reading a letter from a gentleman who was basically writing a letter to his wife that had already passed away for 2 years. And it was so touching to me because his wording in it. And one of the things that stood out to me is he was writing this letter to his late wife, explaining to her that her dad is better than anybody alive. And that even though he's trying to, because he doesn't want to be alone, he's trying to, meet these new people and new women. And he's like, in the letter, he's saying just minutes of talking to them, they become ashes in comparison to the love that I feel to you. So it's like the love that I have for you transcends death so much that me loving you beyond the grave is better than me having this person occupying my time who's alive. And I just was like, whoa. Whew. May this love find me, right? That's what I'm thinking of. And that was such a bad accent. I was thinking about the Nigerian. Have you seen that? I don't know. That was really bad. It was like Jamaican and Nigerian at the same time. I know. But that whole thing where they say, may that love find you, because that love has found me. I got that in bed. I was just making the comment. But I was just like, wow, that's so amazing. Come on now. Come on, love. Like, that is love at its purest form. But at the same time, I brought it to my clients that were on just as a reminder, like, okay, whatever the futile things that you are arguing about, right? I'm not talking about negating from having hard conversations. If you come on here, you definitely know that's not my MO. We definitely having the hard conversations that stretch us in every way. But sometimes we can forget to deal with each other and handle each other like we're precious souls and human beings, and so it was kind of like a reminder. At least I wanted it to, and I got feedback where some of them did say that it did do that to them, to realize, like, man, whatever it is that we're bickering about, you realize this time is precious, and you don't know, right, when that person is going to be gone and not here. So why not cherish them, while they're here? Why not us really be present and really, be with one another, and create and develop that type of love that can transcend death and be beyond the grave. So yeah, so listening, right, to understand, and really in cherishing that person and really handling them with care, and lastly, again, the most atypical one I think from tonight is practice what you're going to say to them before you say it. I will say it works in the area of Emily just came on here. Hey, Emily. Emily's a singer. I'm sure she's heard this before. To practice in the mirror what you're going to sing so that the audience, you can see what the audience is seeing, how they're experiencing you, right? Again, we do that in acting. We do that also in communication studies, all because there is a message that you have. There is a certain way that you want to convey it. And in those areas of study, they know how powerful it is for you to match your facial expressions, your micro expressions that are going on in your face, along with the tonality in your voice, along with the words that you're delivering, right? So if I'm trying to rile up an audience and I'm speaking with this soft tone, it's not going to necessarily be this empowering speech, right? Or if I'm saying something that's sombering, but I'm like, got a smile on my face, the people are gonna be like, what is going on? That's what I'm working on now. Like what I told y'all, right? That I could say something that's so heavy and then do this like chuckle laughter. And people are like, I don't get it. Why did she chuckle after she just dropped that whole atomic bomb, you know, on us? So I'm working on that, guys. But that's the whole idea, right? So why do we want to do that? Because what you intend to say, your approach will match, right? And if it's a person that's in your life that you feel like it's worth it work, right? That's what having healthy relationships and knowing that you have someone in your life who is worth, right? Worth the work that you have to put in, to be able to reap, the rewards and the benefits and having the enriching engagement, then it's worth it. Will it take a little extra effort? Yeah, absolutely. But being in a healthy relationship is worth it work, right? It's worth it work, and it's only going to bring out, you're not going to lose doing that. Maybe someone will be on here and be like, I did all that. Why would I do all that? Practice what I'm going to say before I say to them. And what if that person ups and leaves me? You didn't lose nothing out of that, because that same skill set is going to go to the next person, right? That you choose to vet and be a potential partner for you. You lose nothing in that. All you're going to get is more skilled at it. So when the next person comes along, they're going to be like, whoa, there's something about the way that she or he communicates with me. Something he knows the tone that he uses when he says a certain thing, the way that he looks at me, with his eye. You're not going to lose. You are only going to get better, So those are the 4 that I introduced tonight. There's so many, so we will be on another time and I will go over that. Oh my gosh, my beautiful Auntie Sharon, I don't know if you're still in here. I love you. Thank you for popping in. My aunties fly, y'all, okay? That's all I have to say. I love you. So thank you guys for coming on with me. Thank you for all the feedback. Treasure, I am Sins, Emily, Chef. I'm probably missing people's names. Panda, Ozzy, a lot of folks came in here tonight. Big Dallas and my beautiful cousin Ivory. I'm sorry if I missed anyone's names. I apologize. But I thank you guys for stopping in. As I always say, you can be anywhere else, but you chose to be here with me for the whole time or whatever amount of time that you gave me. Your energy is one of the most important currencies here in this world. So I thank you. I thank you for giving me your time. I hope that you heard something tonight that you can apply. And if you did, definitely, you know what to do. Subscribe to my Forever Friends Academy YouTube channel. Definitely, if you want to do more, definitely like, comment, and spread the video, so that people can also hear this advice and hear the tips and strengthen their relationships, you know? So I appreciate you guys. Until next time, always remember to live, to love freely. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.